Islam Wars. Let's start it up. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Muhammad Ali. Islam. Prophet warns all governors, Muslims ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their carding button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Ali. Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance, and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near. So says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Ali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see. Ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving. And they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Ali. Islam. Any announcements for right now? Bro, any announcements for right now?
Looking to go to Canaanland next Sunday, which is basically an activity that we picked up from the whole COVID lockdown. So we did a walk. From Pottery Road to Science Center last week, and then next week we're going to be going to a conservation area called Ganaraska. The temple will be covering the parking there, and it's a wonderful place. They've got a lot of these sort of trails and paths out there. So we're looking to get all the Moors out there who want to go and be able to sort of be outside and also sort of maintain sort of the health sort of requirements that they're looking to do, spacing, being outside, all that stuff. So we're going to be doing that next Sunday. And then we have our our summer solstice event happening on
20th.
June
June
20th.
20th.
And that'll be at the Bluffs. So there'll be more information coming up with that. And then we also have our barbecue planned for July 10th, and that'll be at Morningside Park. So further instructions will follow, but we're just giving you guys a little bit of the itinerary for the next month and a half, as well as bringing you into the fold that, so for future, that any of the dates, the vernal equinox, the summer solstice, the autumnal equinox, or the winter solstice, we will be having events to sort of honor those things that we in our culture honor. All right, so Islam.
So, anybody had any questions for before we start up? That's good. So two things came out this week with regard to us, basically. The first thing we're going to be looking at is the 215 children that they found under the indigenous school or whatever. The whole assimilation idea and basically putting this out there so that it's in the public, it's in the open of the criminal nature of the people who we're dealing with. When we start talking about we're Moors and we are nationality and you can't do this and that, we know our rights or whatever, that this is how they've dealt with the people who were in their jurisdiction. This is how they dealt with them. Right? It's past tense now, because it's talking about they found bones. So this is how the quote-unquote Indian, Métis, Six Nations, and all that Corporation Canada labels as far as the indigenous people. This is how they deal with them, which is why we stress to the point of we're not Indian, and we're not these tribes, and we're not status Indians, and we have nothing to do with their labeling of the indigenous people. We have our own identity as far as who we are. It's the same thing with when they do the sovereign citizen. When they do the sovereign citizen thing and try to tie Moors to that, you're going to notice that in your engagement with them, they're always going to go to, are you an Indian, or what, are you a status Indian, or what tribe are you from, or whatever like that. And to a certain degree, depending on who you're dealing with, it's ignorance, because majority of people just don't know. On the other side of it, it's actually how they've been trained in order to deal with people who look like us. So you're either Negro, black, colored, whatever, or you're black Indian, black Cherokee, black, whatever like that. They always put these things there. So we just want to go through this article. It's made it to BBC, so it's news if BBC is talking about it. Canada mourns as remains of 215 children found at Indigenous school. The children were students at Kamloops Indian Residential School in British Columbia that closed in 1978. And again, when you check all the history of all these indigenous schools, all of them closed because they found out the atrocities going on there. Right? They realized that the idea of a residential school was to assimilate the native population, not to teach them the culture of Canada or whatever like that. It was to get every part of their indigenous culture out of them. No different than they said in slavery or whatever like that. Oh, we're going to get, beat the African out of the black guys and all that stuff so that they can think, right? So we know that that's a troll calling, because they have it's probably like three. I don't know if you heard, just off topic. If anybody heard the upload on the YouTube page with the dude cussing me off or whatever, so that was a troll. That was a troll from New York, and then that was another troll calling from Rhode Island. That just calls. Doesn't say nothing when I answer, just calling the phone or whatever for no damn reason.
Once you hear your breath.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the children were students at Kamloops Indian Residential School, and they had shut the school down in 1978. So being that they actually shut the school down, it sort of lets you know that they knew what was up there. The discovery was announced on Thursday by the chief of the Kamloops Te Sequem, whatever First Nation, some First Nation group or whatever. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it was a painful reminder of a shameful chapter of our country's history. The First Nation is working with museum specialists and the coroner's office to establish the causes and timings of the deaths, which are not currently known. Right? So all of this is part of the make it seem like they care, right? Find out what happened to the indigenous people or whatever like that. They shouldn't even been under the school in the first place. Shouldn't even been a mass grave. If they're Aboriginal indigenous, they should already have their grave site over there, that once they die, you're going to take them to that grave site, bury them there. How is there, a mass grave? Because when you start talking about mass graves and all that, you're talking about just dig the hole, throw the bodies in, and throw the dirt out, right? But that's the mindset of the colonizer, which is why we can't look at them as white people and European and whatever like that. They're a colonizer, and their position was to steal, murder the indigenous people, and then take their stuff from them. And then obviously murdered people can't talk, so they're gonna get away with it until their stuff is catching up to them now, where they're tearing down stuff and digging up stuff, and now they're digging up bones of people that it wasn't even a consideration before. Now that they're digging it up, now they want to do autopsies and all this to see what happened. Roseanne Casimir, the chief of the community in British Columbia's city of Kamloops, said the preliminary finding represents an unthinkable loss that was never documented by the school's administrators. Canada's residential schools were compulsory boarding schools run by the government and religious authorities during the 19th and 20th centuries, with the aim of forcibly assimilating indigenous youth. And again, with that, on top of the government part comes the religious part of it. So the just like with the Crusades, the pastors, priests, missionaries, or whatever, those are the ones doing the dirty work for the people who are trying to save face or show that, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. We didn't do anything. Canada is lily white and ain't no racism here. Come on over and all that. When the stuff is just as bad here as it is anywhere else.
Well, in fact, just to interrupt, I think personally what I started to figure out is really this has been the center of it all. This is why they put Canada on top of this. That's why there's America, because the Americans, those are the sheep. They don't care. We'll even give you your nationality. You won't even be able to figure your shit out. But up here, they've actually had to confabulate the story that they brought us over here on these ships, and this is what we're part of, or we're part of that thing from America up here. But somehow we're in some different jurisdiction. And the jurisdiction is so far removed, and that's because they know that they've got to keep us that much further away. And I've been thinking about this the last couple of days when they've been talking about these things called the brain drain. I don't know if you remember that. That was where they were having people from here being sucked down into the States for all these high-profile jobs, and they were calling it the brain drain. And what I've thought is just about how unique our culture is, how unique our people are, comparatively speaking to even so-called Americans, that we should really be sort of, very much more similar to. Maybe that has a lot to do with how we've been indoctrinated, but I just feel that there's a unique, it's like people from certain segments of the world, they will have a unique sort of frequency to them. And I feel that for people up in this region, we represent that. So anyways.
Yeah. Any other comments? We'll carry on. Kamloops Indian Residential School was the largest in the residential system, opened under Roman Catholic administration in 1890. The school had as many as 500 students when enrollment peaked in the 1950s. The central government took over the administration of the school in 1969, operating it as a residence for local students until 1978 when it was closed. The First Nations said that the remains were found with help of a ground-penetrating radar during a survey of the school. To our knowledge, these missing children were undocumented deaths, Ms. Casimir said. Some were as young as 3 years old. We sought out a way to confirm that knowing out of the deepest respect and love for those lost children and their families, understanding that Secwepemc is the final resting place of these children. The tribe said that it had reached out to the home communities whose children attended the school. The tribe said that it reached out to the home communities whose children attended the school. They expected to have preliminary findings by mid-June. British Columbia's chief coroner, Lisa Lapointe, told Canadian broadcaster, "We are early in the process of gathering information." What reaction has there been? The reaction has been one of shock, grief, and contrition. The news that remains were found at the former Kamloops residential school breaks my heart, Mr. Trudeau wrote in a tweet. Canada's Minister of Indigenous Relations, Carolyn Bennett, said the residential schools were part of a shameful colonial policy. The government was committed to memorializing those lost souls, she said. Terry Teague, the regional chief of British Columbia's Assembly of First Nations, called findings such grave sites urgent work that refreshes the grief and loss of communities in the region. Those views were echoed by other Indigenous groups, including the First Nations Health Authority. That this situation exists is sadly not a surprise and illustrates the damaging and lasting impact that the residential school system continues to have on First Nations people and their families' communities. Its CEO, Richard Jock, wrote in a statement, "From about 1863 to 1998, more than 150,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families and placed in these schools. The children were often not allowed to speak their language or to practice their culture, and many were mistreated and abused. A commission launched in 2008 to document the impacts of the system found that large numbers of indigenous children were never returned to their home communities. The landmark Truth and Reconciliation Report, released in 2015, said that the policy amounted to cultural genocide. And then you're going to want to go take a look at that, the Truth and Reconciliation Report. Again, just so you can have a first-hand account of their position, how these foreign European colonists looked at and dealt with the indigenous people. And then when you're doing your research on this whole thing with the indigenous culture and indigenous people of the Americas, recognize that they're only showing you the fair-skinned ones. They're purposely only showing you that, but that's not what it was, right? In 2008,
I was going to say,
oh yeah, go ahead, Mark.
too, I had a thought that this is no different. We're really like the Palestinians.
Yep.
That's really that's really who we are.
Yep.
If you want to look to some other situation, we're the Palestinians, but we don't even have a so-called government. But that's what we are. We are overthrown people that have been that are continually under occupation.
Mm-hmm. Right. In 2008, the Canadian government formally apologized for the system. The Missing Children Project documents the deaths and the burial places of the children who died while attending the schools. To date, more than 4,100 children who died while attending a residential school have been identified. 4,100 children who died while attending a residential school have been identified. Now, in contrast with that, sis, I wanted to, if you wanted to talk, we were talking last week about how your daughter is dealing with being at the Morris School.
Right.
I don't know if you want to talk about some of that and just your thoughts on how that's benefiting her evolution as a child, opposed to what they did in these schools.
Okay. One thing I noticed is sometimes, like even myself when I was a child, when I used to hear my parents tell me things, I would take in what they're saying, but sometimes when you hear it from somebody else, it hits different. You take it in differently, but I feel like it's more effective. So I noticed that when I speak to her about more signs and these kind of things, aliens, et cetera, sometimes she looks at me like, Mom, you know?
Yeah.
So then when she was going to school now, and she sees other children there and she hears the instructor speaking, it's just solidifying and reinforcing what I'm teaching her. So that's a good thing. And, so I feel, and I see I can see her leadership skills coming through. I can see she feels more confident.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. I remember when she had to study the 101s, she literally excused herself without me having to tell her or remind her to study. She just took herself away and did what she had to do. So that was nice. That was good, to see. And so far, so good. Good.
Any other comments in regards to the residential school article?
Well, one of the things I've been noticing across the board, and you were here for that meeting I was at earlier, and they keep talking about the atrocities, but I noticed that there's never any talk about the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
They're always talking about the travesty, this, the that. How come they're not saying, okay, and what we've done is we've erected a ministry now, we found all those people, we put them in jail, we excised the racist element within these organizations. None of that's talked about. So it's business as usual. Mm-hmm. This is what I've also realized. They are still running game on us. Think about it. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was how long ago?
Yeah, 2018, 15. Yeah,
and ain't nothing now. Nothing's happened.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened.
Yeah.
It's just it's game. They're just running game on us continually. And the big part of it is that, and that was what I was going to say to the other part. They're focusing, like you say, they're focusing on having separated us, divided us by calling them Indians, and they're focusing on the Indians as if that's who really is being tortured. How about all the Moors that have been killed?
Yeah.
Right? They declassified us as black people, and they pretended that we came from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute crazy scenario that they've got going on here, and we're buying into it.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of believes that narrative too, that, oh yeah, we came on a ship from Africa, and you tell them like, oh no, I'm from here, same land or whatever, even if you're from Jamaica or the islands or whatever.
But isn't this funny? Hold on, you came from a boat over there. Funny how you lose your nationality. They didn't see you come over on a boat. You're just some slave. How come you're not a Nigerian slave? How come you're not a Ghanaian slave? You know what I mean? All of a sudden you're just a slave.
Yeah.
That's how you know something else is up.
Something's up.
You're up from Africa. What? There wasn't a spot from Africa? Just Africa, the whole thing? I wasn't Libyan, I wasn't whatever? No, you're just a slave. That's how you know something's up.
Yeah.
Actually, I was just having this conversation with my mom before I came here.
Mm.
And I was saying, when they claimed that
Please, Mom,
slavery
hold on.
happened, at
Yeah.
the time, all it was shipped. So if we want to believe that, they had hundreds of thousands of us that were shipped, it took like 2-3 months to get from there to here.
Yeah.
They even store that amount of food and water. Not no gourmet anything, just
Yeah,
to keep people alive.
Just to keep people alive.
Store 2 months worth of water, fresh water on a ship to keep hundreds of people alive, plus your food.
I'll just jump in for a second. I knew the shit was messed up when I was told maybe in the last couple of years that even today, and that day 3 years ago, the Navy ships that are out there for months, they have desalination equipment that takes seawater and extracts normal water. That's today to keep these people alive.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep 300 people chained
Yeah.
in an area. Where do they go to the washroom?
Yeah.
You can't keep people lying in a bed for 3 months,
Yeah.
not eating.
It's not happening.
Where's the food? It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Makes no sense.
On
Yeah.
top of the fact that even if that was the truth, it's like, so if that was my child, for example, if you came into my house, took my children, and said, you know what, we're in where? Let's say you moved to Montreal. Maybe, okay, I could understand you had guns, you had people, I couldn't do anything at the time.
Right.
I'm gonna try to squat up with
Thank
some
you.
mans and say, yo, you're in Montreal.
Let's go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not 300-400 years ago,
Yeah.
no
Absolutely.
African nation ever said,
Absolutely.
yo, what's going on in America? Yo,
Yeah.
I have my youths over here. This is
Absolutely.
my people. Like,
Yeah.
how come nobody came for us?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It don't make no sense.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
As soon as anything happens, oh, the Chinese, this and that, China's on the horn, like, yo, we're just
Yeah.
people,
Quick time.
yo, fix up,
Yeah.
But no African nation ever in the
Yeah.
history of life said,
That's how you know something's up.
hey, let's go.
Yeah.
Nah,
They did apologize though. They did apologize.
oh, that makes it all good.
Yeah.
You stole my people, but you said sorry, so.
Yeah. Straight. Brother Negab,
What's that?
peace, what's good, more?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that they're talking about all the residential schools and that the Micmac were part of the Shubenacadie residential school.
Oh, just hold on a second before you continue. Just turn down your computer. Cause we're hearing that too. Yeah, turn the computer down.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, more. Yeah, just put out whatever you want to put out with regard to this residential school thing.
Several years ago, we had, was forgiveness ceremonies and stuff like that, trying to heal the peoples that were from that residential school system. There on, as far as my generation, we went to the day school and Housie, New Brunswick and territory, and that actual territory was never meant to be infringed upon. That is our land. And there's original buildings that are still there. Some of them have been resurfaced over, but the main buildings are still there. We had a downtown, we had harbor, we had all kinds of ships coming in here and everything at the turn of the century still. and then it became taken over. As far as the residential schools go, I myself, like I said in the chat, I've had my hair cut. I've been locked in supply closets by the nuns and brothers. I was actually held down to cut my hair because my parents, they sent a note home. My parents refused to cut my hair and they cut it. What do you call that there? I've been beat multiple times with straps and everything like that, rulers, you name it. There was nothing for them to pull our hair and drag us out of classrooms. And it was basically savagery. We were not permitted to eat in the same, what do you call it? And I myself was in grade 7, going into grade 8, or was my second year of grade 8, before we were permitted to enter the L.E. Rainsboro School, which was a new school. They didn't want so-called Indians in there. They had fencing and all kinds of different things, and we were never permitted to join those things because they didn't want us to have a sword or to learn any of the things, which were basically our cultures as I became an adult and learned all these things. What do you call it? I myself am a pipe carrier. Nimdelo is it negative Maxikali, that what do you call it? That's in my own language is I am. Hebrew is soaring high over water. And what do you call it? I switched it down to yes, he's soaring over water flies for my national ID. Anyway, to this day, just today, in town, I refused to put a mask on. I was threatening to never come back to that store and everything like that. But they didn't stop me from doing my groceries. They just followed me around and stuff like that. I'm, what do you call it? I'm adamant. And I gave them full, what do you call that? They told them who they were, that who we were, that corporations don't make law, they make, what do you call it? Statutes and codes. And that's where I want to end there because my people over here, the Mi'kmaq, many of the elders suffered, and we watch alcoholism and drug abuse and the whole nine. If any social problems out there, rest assured it finds its way to reservations. And what do you call it? Here we are, we're one of the oldest Mi'kmaq tribes there, they're the Algonquin. They know about us, we're in maps from freaking 1500s there, they know who we are. So they know we're Mormons and they know who we are, but right now I'm working with my people and they're becoming awoken. And then don't be surprised if you see a flood of Mi'kmaq coming your way.
Islam.
And Islam, my brothers.
Oh, let me just ask you this one too. Just to talk on I guess embracing the whole Moorish paradigm and how that's been as far as from where you come from with the reserve talk and the Indian cards and all that to the nationality side and getting the word out to the people on the reservation.
Well, I'm not the first Mi'kmaq because I seen Jamal had a young lady there who she was Mi'kmaq too, and she's nationalized. But I'm the first one here. I proved it in court. I used it, what do you call it, to get myself out of a jam that they were trying to put me in. And they're the ones that were at fault, actually. And what do you call that? I've been pushing it ever since, and now there's 4 of us that are nationalized and, what do you call, put our proclamations in itself. So we're getting there. It's just slow because some of the ones that have been getting the benefit of the 501c3, they're going to be the hardest ones to get. But the rest of us, we live like dirt.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to imply is that, what do you call that? Here we are, we own the greatest nation on earth, and we live in squalor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now that we know the truth and that there, and I got a big mouth. So what do you call that there? I let everybody know. And right now I'm trying to gather up as many books as I can. I put on Facebook for a book drive and stuff. And we're going to try to create and have a Moorish library here on the res.
Oh, shit.
So we're doing things on our end, trying anyway. And like I said there, as the people wake up, you're going to see it's going to become like a flood.
two things. What information could you put out for people who maybe want to donate to the book drive? Like, could they email you to get addresses and stuff like that? If you could put that out, and
Yeah.
what's been the reception of the chiefs on these reserves with regard to the Moorish nationality transition?
I had a meeting with the current chief. We're about due for election here, I think in the 12th of June. And I've just had come out, remember I told you I just lost my power and everything?
Yeah.
And I had to go in there and everything, and I managed to sit down, talk with the chief and everything, and she gets it. You know, the young lady, she's starting to catch on, she's starting to get it. But they feel like, you know what I mean, like they want to know how, or what do you call it? Like I told them, you gotta proclaim it, you gotta claim it. Nobody rebuts any of their claims that they make all over here, and that's our problem.
Yeah.
We're sitting too idle. And one of the elder chiefs that was chief before, wherever, he's gonna run again. Because we thought that by putting a lot of young people in there, but the young people, I'm sorry to say, they all come out of university and they think they know stuff, and they're the hardest ones to convince of anything. Because they think they know stuff, even though you show them and prove them. And I get a lot of, you believe what you believe, and I'll believe what I believe. And I try to tell them about the beliefs are for children. Oh, believe in Santa Claus, but we all know he ain't coming. You know what I mean? So that's what I wanted to add there, what do you call it, plus put my, what do you call, 2 cents in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the contact info for the book drive.
Oh yes, that's right. It's at baymucksink at gmail.com. I think it's baymucksink47 at gmail.com.
Same email that you usually send me stuff from.
Yes, yeah. And
yeah, you can put it out there.
I haven't put anything up there lately, but I will email you the information about the book drive and some other stuff.
Just to confirm, BEYMUKSINGK at gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right.
And that should be the one anyway.
All right.
And like I said, I'll get on that and I'll email you the information.
Give thanks, bro. Appreciate
it. We want to see stuff starting to move and shake around here too.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah. And like I got 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and what do you call that there? And at first they thought Daddy was losing it, but now they started to realize Daddy's on the money. Anyway, I thank you very much for your time, Lord.
Give thanks. Thank you, Lord.
Islam and much love, man. Much love.
Peace and love,
okay. Bro. All right, continue on, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So that's from on the reserve itself.
Where is this reserve?
Where? New Brunswick or something? East Coast somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Right. And they, we've had, conversations, with them and the few of them out there who are on the info, and it's no different than what we're talking about with our people, pulling teeth with these people, try to get them to embrace their culture, look outside the box, be wanting to be more than, the drunk guy, just, because this is our situation, so we're just gonna be like this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, So they're doing the best they could do with what they have, and like you're saying, once and then this is sort of the same position that we look at with Moors who are coming into this in different areas, that this is what he's doing, what everybody should be doing. You know what I mean? They're in whatever area, they start putting the word out, give out some flyers, whatever like that. Eventually, one person's going to gravitate, and somebody else gravitate, and then next thing you know, you got 5 people, and then now you have a study group, and then after that, you have a body politic, and then now you could start handling some affairs, But honors to those Moors out there for wanting to get out of that reserved nigger mindset and get back to their true status. The next article, I don't know if Rennie, if you want to do an intro to this article right here, because this one was a little crazy.
So it's Islam. So it's an article on a brother in Hamilton, or an individual in Hamilton, I should say, and it's on our article about how he got convicted on kidnapping or attempted kidnapping, and the individual went to court in the appellation of a bay in L. So,
I think so.
If you want to go ahead with the article, it's a very interesting article. So it's better to read the article so everybody can hear for themselves, and then you can go after.
Hamilton man convicted in quote unquote bizarre plot.
Oh, I want to shout out Tyreek for actually sharing that.
Oh, for finding it? Yeah.
Finding
Study it.
it.
Study. May 27, 2021. A Hamilton man convicted in bizarre plot to kidnap former Electra Utilities CEO. He led a group armed with zip ties to take over the Electra Utilities building and arrest its former CEO. The group didn't make it far in their attempt nearly 4 years ago. When police got to the John Street North building, they found the 5 men waiting outside. They readily admitted that they were there to seize the building and take Max Cananzi to jail. The Hamilton man says he was seeking a correction of contract with the utility that day, but he also believed that he had the authority to seize the utility's land and everything on it. He told police he owned everything right down to the pants and the shoes of the CEO. Last week, Brandon Brown, who in court was called Noble Elijah L. Muhammad Brown Armstrong Bay, was convicted of conspiracy to kidnap. But despite the seriousness of the offense, it carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. Bay was spared a jail sentence. Instead, he was sentenced to 2 years probation in a case that Superior Court Justice Andrew Goodman called bizarre. The 40-year-old, who now says his name is Noble Elijah Muhammad Megafin Strong Bay, told The Spectator he was about 80% pleased with what happened in court last week. Bay was originally charged with 5 offenses. He was found not guilty of obstructing police for failing to identify himself with his legal name. The Crown dropped the charge of failing to attend court, and Goodman dismissed 2 counts of criminal harassment after a legal problem with one of the witnesses. His only conviction was for conspiracy to kidnap. Bay is polite and well-spoken, but at times difficult to follow. He says his beliefs and actions are all for the greater good to correct the wrongs that began with colonialism. Before being sentenced in court, he said, "Doing the right thing has always been my #1 priority." He never wanted to hurt anyone. Noble Elijah Muhammad Megafin Strong Bay was sentenced to 2 years probation in a case that the Superior Court called bizarre. In an interview with The Spectator, Bay said his beliefs stem from the damage of British imperialism and the theft of land from the indigenous people. He believes a fraud is being perpetrated against the people throughout Canada's system of money. His own ancestry includes Arawak people, the indigenous people of the Caribbean. His grandfather was noted as a Canadian civil rights leader, Bromley Armstrong. If you look up Bromley Armstrong.
Yeah.
He sees his beliefs and actions of a continuation of that activism. He said he focused on Horizon Utilities, now Electra, because they were demanding payment from him. The utility was not responding to his letters. Electra denied to comment about the court case. Bay, who was self-represented, testified in his own defense during the trial. He tried to explain himself, but ultimately Goodman found his evidence confusing and inconsistent. Goodman also noted multiple times that Bay is an intelligent, articulate, and respectful individual. However, he is entirely misguided, Goodman said. Bay was sent for a psychiatric assessment at St. Joseph's Healthcare, Hamilton. However, Dr. Maz Usami found he did not meet the criteria to be considered not criminally responsible because of mental illness. Among Bay's claims was that he had the authority to seize the utilities property because he was acting on behalf of the Pope. He claimed not to be subject to Canada's laws and to be the Grand Marshal of the Kingdom of Tunis Republic of North America. Bay says that the self-imposed title has changed again. He now says he's Grand Marshal for the Kingdom, Tunis Republic, Al-Kebalan, Northwest. For Bay, every word and all of the punctuation has meaning. According to the court document, the strange incident began around 9 a.m. June 26, 2017, when Bay and several accomplices went to Hamilton Police Central Station. Bay presented documents to officers at the front desk and said he planned to arrest someone. Bay was told his documents were not legal, that he had no authority to arrest anyone, and that if he did, he would be arrested himself, according to Goodman's May 19th written decision. But less than an hour later, at 9:49 a.m., police were called to Horizon Utilities at 55 John Street North. Several men were claiming they were going to take the building and arrest Kananzi. Police arrived and spoke with 5 men who admitted that they were intending to arrest Kananzi and take him to Mimico jail. Bay was never violent or aggressive. The men were asked to leave, and the next day Bay was arrested. The accomplices were not named in court. However, Goodman said that it is clear Bay was the leader. One of the men pleaded guilty to mischief in a separate hearing. Before the incident, Bay reached out to various police and government officials asking for assistance to seize the estate and arrest the CEO. This included a call to Halton Police. In court, Crown Attorney Steve O'Brien, acting on behalf of Assistant Crown Jeff Levi, who prosecuted the case, noted the seriousness of the offense. This isn't a trivial offense or a frat boy crime, yet he agreed jail time was not warranted. Goodman said he would have considered a conditional discharge, which would have meant no criminal record, but that's not allowed with kidnapping offenses. In almost 11 years on this job, without a doubt, you have been probably one of the most respectful accused to come before me, Goodman said. He encouraged Bay to put his passion and intelligence to good use. I am hoping this matter can be put behind you, he said. Got anything ready?
Yeah, I mean, when I read it initially, I was just thinking, but no mention of, where the Bay, the L comes from, and why you're not your strong man, and why you're that. No mention of that. The fact that you never mentioned Mujali or nothing, And that he was mentioning that he was acting on behalf of the Pope, right? And I mean, if he's saying that the British, are the reason for the problems, but he's acting on behalf of the Pope, that contradicts. Because the Pope is the one that's the reason why we're in certain problems there, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he says he's acting on behalf of the Pope. What does the Pope have to do with you being indigenous and
They also reference to trying to claim that he was crazy. Right?
Yeah.
So they're not gonna say all the things to not be crazy. They're gonna try to, even though they said that whoever it was said that he didn't exhibit enough to call him insane. Just use that as an excuse, right? But they're still trying to paint the narrative that's crazy. Saying that, look at what he said, he believed that he owns everything down to the man's pants and his clothes.
I didn't know.
The reason that they would write this in the article is that you, as a reader, are going to read this and say, oh, this guy sounds he's kind of, right? But then they're contradicting it in the article because they're saying, yo, this is the most respectful guy. He was the most, most respectful guy that they've ever met, bringing things against him, right? So it's like, we're telling you this to make you feel like, nah, something's wrong with this guy. Meanwhile, they can't fully say it, so they have to say, yeah, he says he's really a persecution of the Pope, he's acting on behalf of the Pope, he's doing. So it's a bunch of like, you know what I mean? They gotta do it that way. They can't just come and say, yeah, he's more, he has this story. But you don't want people to know all this stuff.
Right.
It's one of those who know will know. Yes. Them is just gonna be like, whatever.
He has the authority to arrest me.
Right? They said this carries like a life in jail. They're saying this.
And
Is
they gave him two
This is a big probation.
probation, not even jail time.
Another thing too, what I thought was what you're saying, the whole Bay thing, because they're saying Bay was very respectful. Bay once mentioned, he's saying that he's this, but he's actual, it's truth and falsehood, strange mixed in one center. Very interesting.
I thought to myself, who's to say he didn't mention Olujuwali within the whole conversation in the trial? Maybe that was purposely omitted from the article.
Right.
That's what we said. It's not him who wrote the article. It's not him who wrote the article. So whoever wrote the article is able to put in what they want. Even when they're saying that he speaks, it's like, is it in quotes or is it their paraphrasing? You know what I'm saying? Like all of those types of things matter, but the general public is not going to necessarily know the difference.
I've yet to experience that part of that.
They can say that he said this, but there's a difference between saying you said you're more and having in quotes, I am more. Those two things are completely different because me saying you said something, even in court, that's hearsay. You know what I'm saying? So, things are not always as they seem.
And for the record, this article, the general public can't even go on the website and just click and read it. You have to subscribe to the article. You have to subscribe to like the actual spec to actually get the article.
It's like a disclosure.
So it's certain,
Destruction.
Just to bring it back, people they paint this picture in the world that is not completely true. Like for example, like my wife, her mother is Jamaican, her father is from Ghana. When she was growing up, it wasn't cool to be African. So she would represent the Jamaican side, right? What they would show you on TV, whenever you think Africa, you think, skinny child with a big belly and fly in his face and, oh, please donate $1, blah, 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 less than a cup of coffee a day and all that other shit. And she went there when she was like 15, 16, and she was like, oh shit, like, it looks like here, like, you know what I'm saying? Like she was like, she didn't realize, right? So now I say that to say this. The other day I was in my garden. I was with my son, and he was wearing his fez. I had my turban on. I was, gardening, whatever. And this guy, he looked like Saddam Hussein type of pigment and such, And he's driving by and he stopped and he said something, but I didn't hear it. And then my son, he heard it. So I turned around and I saw he was talking, he was like motioning whenever he was talking. And as I was walking towards him, I heard my son was like, it's not a hat, it's a fez. And the guy was like, oh yeah, I like your hat. And so as I got closer, he's like, yeah, I was just saying that I like his hat. And I was like, oh, that's what, now it's clicking into me because I heard my son, but I didn't hear him. I was like, oh yeah, no, it's not a hat, it's a fez. He's like, oh no, I know, this is from the country. He's like, I'm from Morocco. I said, oh, okay, yeah, remorse Americans. And the man, like, as I said, what we would say, a white man, the man pulled over his car as I said that. He jumped out the car and he said, yo, you're my brother. And he came and he hugged me. I've never seen this guy before in my life.
Yeah.
He hugged me. He's like, yo, if you go to Morocco, like we ended up talking for like a good 10, 15 minutes. He said, yo, if you go to Morocco and you say you're a Moorish American, they know who you are. They will treat you like, not like no tourist, like they'll treat like, and we ended up sitting there talking like for 10, 15 minutes and he was just talking to me. And,
Yeah.
like, and this is like, clearly he's an older guy. He's like probably like 50s.
Yeah.
He was just around like having his like, construction looking vest, like the reflector vest and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's just like, yeah, give me your number, Like he took my number and he texted me after. He's like, yeah, I know because of COVID and stuff, it's kind of, hard, but yeah, we should link up. And we sat there and we talked for like 10, 15 minutes and I was like, yeah. And I was like, people know who we are, but they're not going to tell you that people know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And every time you say it, they make you look like
The main point I brought what he's saying is keep honor. Like son has his dress on, dad has his turban on.
That's
What else you gonna do?
also, that's also the importance of wearing it because even me walking the streets regular, like I'll see the so-called white people, they'll look at me different. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to, trust me, I'm always matching, doing my thing. I used to have beard fitteds and all that rest. Everything's matching to me. You know what I mean? And as I switch, it's like I realize, they realize I'm not black.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like without knowing, like they're not gonna say, "Oh, you're a more," like they won't know it like that, but they know something different.
He's not like
It's
the
not,
regulars.
it's not
Yeah.
the same as the rest of them. You know what I mean? I still have my wall full of hats sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
nah, I gotta get rid of this because I don't even. You know what I mean? But it's important to dress the part to look. Just wearing the pheasant itself is like, yeah, it's not necessarily gonna be you're walking on the street. Hey, boy.
Yeah.
But as I was walking here, I saw him. I saw you. I saw him. I was like, oh, it's because I'm black. You know what I'm saying? It means something. So even if you don't see it, people say, people know. It means something,
Yeah.
So it's like, that's why I was like, okay, I make sure that as much as sometimes, it's like, oh, I'm just going to water the garden. And then after, but the one thing that makes me realize too, and why I make sure I do it, because if you ever watch like the Hindu signs, you never catch them. Like the one, if you see one like on your block or something who wears a turban, you will never see that man before.
Yeah. Never.
Like, one that I've seen like in my area, I've never seen his hair. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right. Every time I'm going, I was like, man, it's gonna take me all 5 minutes just to wrap this. I'm just going to just go sprinkle 1, 2. No, let me make sure I do it.
Make sure I do it up.
Because you never know who's going to be driving by, who's going to be walking by and see you and what it might lead to, right? So,
So some highlights from the article. Going back to what Brother Shaw is saying that they're not going to reveal it like that. You know what I mean? So when and again, honors to Tariq for pulling this out too, that when these things are on website, you got to sign up to get it and whatever like that. You're obviously keeping it out of circulation, right? And again, stressing the point that when you look at the brother, when you look up the article or just pull up the dude's the name, the appellation, you'll see that he's on the fair side of the spectrum. Right? I mean, not the brother fair side, like the indigenous tribe, Métis, whatever side, right? One of the things they brought up that he's the Grand Marshal for Kingdom, Tunis, Republic, Al-Kebalan, Northwest. Anytime you have bodies of people that are saying El Beide Al Ali, but then they're talking about all this stuff instead of talking about Moroccan Empire, they have some type of motive, because they can't really do what they want to do under Moroccan Empire, because that's its own separate jurisdiction, and there's a standard that goes with that, right? But if they create their own thing, now they can go to places with zip ties talking about they're going to arrest some CEO who guarantee you they didn't even put them on notice to let them know, yeah, we're coming to get you, quote unquote warrant, right? If they're going to be arresting somebody on their property, there should be, when he was seeking correction of contract, he should have been seeking correction of contract and issuing a warrant that if the correction of contract's not made, that's the grounds that we're using to come kidnap you, right? Of course, they didn't get kidnapped. Omar, you had something?
No, just from the perspective of exactly what you're saying, that to me this is a like it is comparative to the free men on the land argument.
Yeah.
In a sense,
Yeah.
as well. I was saying to Rennie that I think that the mere fact that it has been published lets you know that more than likely this is something that it might be, that it is something that they're working to their advantage. First of all, to allude that he's crazy, but then let you know that he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
This is just
double talk. Yeah.
Double talk, to then saying that he's crazy, and then sort of tying in, certain facts that make you competent, as well as then the grand marshal part. To me, when I heard that phrase, I thought automatically of the Masons, and thought that there was some alluding to sort of the sort of European, the Europeanized Masonic order stuff that was going on there. And part of me thinks that this guy is probably one of their boys to a certain degree, in terms of is connected in some way. Because if that was some, true sort of, I would say, melanated guy on some kidnapping charges, you definitely wouldn't be getting them 2 years.
Not 2 years. Yeah.
But then
Probation.
But then this is why I say, then you realize, well, behind the scenes, there's some codified stuff. You were saying that he went to the police station to let them know.
Right.
So then he wasn't doing anything on a certain level. Because if you let those people know that he was going to go over there, then that ain't an attack.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the cops that I'm going to go over here and grab someone.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go over there and I'm going to let them know that I'm over here. Well, you're just sort of, to me, I wonder too whether they're not laying the groundwork. In a sense, this is a thought that just came to me. Maybe they're laying the groundwork now to dismiss any future claims made from this perspective, because it's sort of like the Alberta guy.
Yeah.
So you get someone out there who then uses the very purity of it to muck it up.
To make it messy.
That then becomes the precedence that they then go back to every time.
Every time, yeah. Well, that's why I put the Ontario pseudo legal commercial argument.
Right.
That when they try to put us under sovereign citizen,
Right.
that's what they're using.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So same thing that you're talking about.
Sorry.
The thing that created this was Nanya Shabuel, the same Atlanta, Alberta Moore, who he was doing so many commercial arguments in the Moore status that they created a whole platform now that they just put everybody under that. As soon as they start talking about certain language, as soon as they start, full colons on stuff, hyphens, your name is whatever, but you got noble in front of it and all that. They already see that as the agenda that they've set up with their boy.
As well as, sorry to cut you.
Yeah, go ahead.
That he put an Armstrong
Yeah.
within that whole thing, which to me then makes it clipped.
Right.
So he's automatically wiring that stuff in. That's why I say you gotta imagine that really what this is really a campaign of starting to write the narrative for what the Moors can and can't, or not write the narrative for what the Moors can and can't do, but writing a narrative that allows them to then tie us to some fraudulent stuff.
Yeah, and what just hit me right now is not even tying Moors to it, but tying Moors near Hamilton
Absolutely,
to it.
absolutely,
Directly Moors in that jurisdiction
absolutely,
being,
absolutely,
absolutely.
absolutely. And the guy's
Not able to exercise.
The guy looks like a European.
Yeah.
Right, please,
Yeah.
get out of here.
So as soon as ready and those Moors out there step up, now they're talking about, or are you part of the Grand Marshal? Whatever.
Well, on to that too, right? As you say,
That's
no, hold on for a second. Think about this. What they've tied that guy to doing is an offense that could put you away forever.
Yeah.
Like kidnapping.
But him not get put away forever.
Right.
Because he's the pawn that, you know what I mean?
Because he's a gentleman.
Yeah.
He's speaking well.
He gets his black.
And he makes sense, but it doesn't make enough sense to not really go with him. But then you want to.
I left the part out too that I have to mention to make note of. So Harry mentions to me that he's encountered this brother.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tyreek was working at Staples for a while, whatever, and the brother came to Staples and started talking about certain stuff about Moors and stuff. So I said, how does he know about Moors? So he goes, Cam and Captain. Right? So I think that whole realm of what he's dealing with
is based on
them.
where they were at.
Yeah. So that's for the record.
Yeah, well, on a certain level, this could be some guy who looks at Cameron and whatever as maybe, those guys are just looking to rob you at the gate. This is a guy who's now taking that knowledge to then want to sort of, do his own thing with.
Yeah.
Which isn't what it's not supposed to be about, but it should all be about doing it in honor and all that stuff. And so then he's taking it to then sort of go into the aspects that Cam and those guys have been on, which is seizing stuff and, putting liens on stuff and, making citizens arrests and all these kind of things. As I said, it's tying you back into stuff where, possibly you going to send a writ now is interpreted as an attempt at kidnapping.
Yeah.
Right? So
Just a writ. Yeah.
or some kind of stuff, because you realize that they're making it, that's why to me it seems weird even the way that the article's written, because they're leaving it so that you don't know whether you're coming or going in that article.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't know. What are they saying here?
Yeah. Well, that's the point here.
Right? And then talking about this guy who's supposed to be threatening to go kidnap someone, but then what you realize probably at the end of the day is that this is what they're doing. On the underlying of it, they're letting you know that this guy's off his rocker.
Yeah.
So that's really what they're
That's where they really wanted to ultimately have people's minds at.
Right.
That. Anybody talking like that, don't even take them.
Watch, very well spoken, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
Very well spoken, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting too is that they mentioned the fact that I think he owed them money or something like that.
Yeah, it was with regard to
They tried to get money from him. For what was it? Utilities bill.
Yeah.
So that's why he said seeking correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're probably like, oh, yes, I want to pay the bills.
No, that's why I say you realize too, they're sort of talking about the fact that he owns all the stuff that they have. It's really, it's, that's the kind of stuff that you have to be careful of too.
But that's I was thinking about when Cujo mentioned Red Eric, rebutting this.
Yeah.
Would it be the spec or would it be the courthouse or the one that made the judgment? Right?
Well, without being involved in it like that, right? It would be for the individual to do the writ of error with regard to the court, the proceeding, them going through their little, whatever they went through, quote unquote trial, right?
No,
but from the perspective of it being put out, it would be the article people that would get the writ of error. Oh, well, you're talking about Grand Marshal or whatever, and call that. The idea of tying Moors to republics, right? Why is it Elijah Muhammad?
Yeah.
I mean, those people were against the Bays.
Yeah.
They weren't for the Bays and all that stuff. But you call yourself some people who are against the Bays. right? The whole thing with the psychiatric assessment, because of him talking however he's talking, that's a standard that they do with people who know the truth. That's inquisition. You know what I mean? Make you look like you're crazy. Make you look like you're a witch, so they could burn you at the stake.
No, but sorry, okay, just to cut you there, this is what I thought was very unique with that I think that's the other subtle part to it, right? Because as you read along, you're saying to yourself, this guy's crazy. Well, if he goes for his assessment, he's definitely going inside for a 72 hour.
If he's crazy,
or
yeah.
whatever.
If he's crazy, yeah.
But what they said was that his position didn't meet
the
didn't
criteria
meet
for
the threshold of being crazy.
Yeah.
So they're telling you subtly that it's not crazy, but that he's really being held to some infraction that he's done, but really it's not an infraction if what he's saying isn't crazy. Because if what he's saying is that he's indigenous and that he owns the whole place, then he really does own the whole place. Mm-hmm. And it is his.
Yeah.
So they're showing you too again that this guy probably had a fairly cogent argument again, but it falls apart because he's in dishonor, because he's got clipped sovereignty.
Right,
he's talking about all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah, all types of stuff.
All kinds of nonsense.
Yeah.
As well as we don't know that if his mom's not Asiatic, then he's not a whore to that sense either.
Yeah.
Right? So you break those things down.
And that's part of the things like what they're saying, that them not telling everything.
Absolutely.
Because if they start telling everything, then they're gonna have to go into all that. Right. Who's his mom?
Right.
If his mom's a European, he can't make none of these claims.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other side, because he made the claim and he had bail in there, they don't have jurisdiction like that to throw him in jail or whatever.
As well as their whole position is fraudulent. From the very
them, the utilities company, the court, the judge, the prosecutor, everybody going down the line is committing fraud. But if fraud is challenging fraud, then it's not really an argument, really.
Well, it comes back to what we've understood, which is the real issue here, which is possession is 9/10 of the law.
Yeah.
And they're running the show right now.
Yeah.
Which is what we have to look to change. And that's only going to happen when we start turning inwards and controlling our own shit.
Focusing on self.
Which is what everyone else has been doing in their own cultures, which we can't do because we can't seem to love each other.
Yep.
And the point that he made too was that he's indigenous and that his grandfather, Armstrong.
Well, so then, that's what I'm saying, you've seen it be codified, because I think I remember when I went to my union stuff, I went up to one of these black event sort of things to try and bring the Moorish paradigm to them, and met with a lot of resistance. One of the things they had us doing on one of the projects was picking one of these civil rights activists, and I think one of them was Armstrong. A very, very light-skinned, light-skinned Moor. And I mean light-skinned, but it's his pigment was very, very, let's say, light. But you realize the whole civil rights thing is all another form of the distraction and the administrative bureaucratic F-up that they put you in.
Yeah.
Because if they're making it civil rights stuff, then they're yet again not acknowledging your Aboriginal and Indigenous status.
Right.
Because civil rights is done for people that don't have a claim.
Yeah. Which could also be why they tied him to
absolutely
to
that
the father,
to that,
the grandfather,
to the grandfather,
yeah,
right?
The grandfather,
as if that should have any lineage on something,
to
right?
do with anything,
Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Any questions or comments?
More crazy as well, because if he's claiming that he's gay or whatever, and they're saying, well, his grandfather was this notable civil rights such and such, Armstrong, right? So, man, this guy don't know what he's talking about. More adds to him looking like he's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well, his grandfather is this guy, so.
Or also looking like because just give him whatever he wants other than the building and whatever like that, but give him whatever else he wants because that's what they do with the Negroes. That's what they do with the civil rights people. They could go sue police and get 50 million and whatever like that, but it really doesn't change anything because the civil rights argument itself is a dead argument. Just making that argument itself and then tying him to that, even though he's claiming that he's indigenous and he's a grand marshal of whatever, and he's talking about republic.
they're
then
tying, they're
it's
tying,
supposed to be a constitutional argument.
right,
that-
they're tying the
that's
indigenous, they're tying the indigenous whole indigenous paradigm
Yeah.
to the civil rights thing.
Yeah.
Subtly.
Mhm.
That must mean that they know that we're coming, because for them to even want to put a smear campaign out there means that they know that,
That's another part of it, yeah.
that we're coming.
Something's going on.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, and even with the part of going back again to the idea of where it's happening, that it's not something like
What's maybe happening is that whole Brampton thing is sort of
Spread.
Yeah, what it is those criminals are moving their way out
into the different. Remember, we had the call with they're in the UK now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, you laugh, bro.
They're in the UK now with the fraudulent stuff, not the de jure info. You know what I'm saying? And then you have Tariq and Rennie and these people out in that jurisdiction who, you know, bringing something like this in is going to muddy the water and have people, you know, well, as soon as they see Bay, they think, oh, well, he must be the same guy from the article, you know. Oh, Fez, oh, he must be the same guy from the article. Indigenous, oh, these guys must be from the article. They're not, you know, some separate entity when we're absolutely separate, have nothing to do with these people. Go ahead, Omar.
I'll say this, what it is, what I just figured out, what is at the core of this is the fact that any time that any one of us is gonna wanna argue a contract with them, you're gonna have this to go back to, indicating that there's obviously some issue here in whatever way. Either you're talking crazy, because you're talking about the Pope, or you're talking about this, or that you're not in full status. If you've got a guy who's competent, he's going to be starting telling you that you ain't really absolutely indigenous because you've got Armstrong in there, or you're Grand Marshal. If you ain't uplifting, you know, your regency, who you belong to, where do you belong to, right? You start talking about the Pope and all of this stuff. What they've done is they've covered all their angles for people trying to make the contract argument moving forward now, which is what we all are being held to, are these promissory, what do they call it again, where you have the one-sided contract, the promissory notes, basically, the license and the rest of these things.
Oh, linear contract?
The contract where I'm saying, the license, for example, so that you sign, so what is that? That's an adhesion contract or a promissory note or whatever, but there's only one person promising anything out there. Is what I'm saying. So this is what we know with all these contracts that we sign across the board with any of it. It's all one side.
It's always one.
But I look at it in a positive light too. Like that's an example of what Moors don't do. Moorish Americans specifically, because you look at the teachings. You know, we have principles, right? We don't do kidnapping, right? Like you know, when you really look into it, you know. You'll see that, you know, Moorish Americans don't do this. They're not, you know, like the prophet instructed not to even carry a pocket knife, right? So you say that all is the best of planners, and that is this article is just like the, you know, it's the best article that ever came out probably yet for Hamilton. Moorish Americans that are, you know, honoring the prophet and giving honors and living a certain
it could be used.
Right?
It could be used from that perspective.
Right? Because it's not what we do.
We're
not gonna go kidnap because the contract's not corrected. Right?
Yeah, but what I think.
And then claiming that you're gonna kidnap, but then you're gonna go take them to the same corporate jail that you should have nothing to do with. If you're under the authority of the Pope, you should be taking them to some international jurisdiction. You know what I mean? You're not gonna take them to Mimico when that's a corporate jurisdiction.
And now that I think about it too, like even deeper, these Europeans know who Moorish Americans are. You know, they know, you know, they have the Quran, they're one of the ones. They have that stuff.
They're definitely familiar.
The intelligence, and you know, they know what Moors are about. You know, if you're a true Moor, then it says in here that you're not supposed to slander your brother or sister, right? And certain things, right? So they know when to pick and sense from nonsense, right? So.
And
but I do think, you know, and to add on that there should be respect, a writ of error. To respect, outlining certain things.
certain points of interest that might, you know, lead to things that aren't really what it is.
Right.
Yeah. The other thing too is you might, people being online and stuff, you might see this pattern of Moors writing their appellations with these different styles of punctuation in it, right? And that whole idea of it being used like that comes from a man by the name of David Wynn Miller, who that was how he was presenting his information, and it was dealing with this thing called the truth language, and basically you speak in a certain way and write in a certain way also takes you out of the jurisdiction. But he was speaking, he's coming from a European perspective. So when they start talking like that, it's because they don't have jurisdiction in the land. So they have to create something in order to not be in the jurisdiction that they're trying to get themselves out of, because they know that, you know, U.S. Canada, you know what I mean, is a corpse. It's a European colonial operation. And because it's dealing with certain activity and they're European, they don't want to be tied with that. But they're tied with that because they're European, you're a foreigner. You don't have land claim authority. You don't have any type of authority with regard to jurisdiction, because the individual is already diverse, which is where it comes into ipso jure, Moorish subject. So anybody who's a European in the Americas, if they can't prove whatever citizenship that they have, then automatically they're a subject of the Moors, right? So when Europeans are making the whole sovereign citizen arguments and things like that, they're making those arguments to get themselves out from under the corporate people while not admitting that they're a corpse too, right? Because if they admit they're a corpse, then they're right back in the jurisdiction that they're trying to get themselves out of, right? So once people of European descent get on the landmass called Americas and they say, I'm going to be a Canadian citizen or United States citizen or whatever like that, they're naturalizing. They're giving up their nationality in order to get something else.
Which they all did to come over
Which
here.
all of them did to come over here.
Especially the ones in office and
Right. Especially the Illuminati and governmental whatever and all that. All that is the
which
same
they have
thing.
no jurisdiction.
Right. Right. On whatever level. Personal level, governmental to individual level, they don't really have jurisdiction. They only have jurisdiction over their property. Which is the point of why we're saying we're not Negro, black, colored, or whatever like that, so they don't have jurisdiction. And then when you make your claim against them to say, well, I'm indigenous and I'm going to sue you because you're violating my rights, they're going to say, you don't got jurisdiction because I'm a European. And that's diverse. We're diverse nationalities. So you can't really deal with me like that because we're not the same nation. Which is supposed to be the same argument that we're making every time they stop us, but we're diverse.
But then they're holding you to some contract that you never made, claiming to be part of their property. And then when you try and disconnect from that, they refuse to acknowledge that.
Which is why dude went for correction of contract. In order to even go to the building to go try to arrest somebody. Because he's questioning the validity of the contract that they have. And if you're a foreigner and this isn't your land, then how are you controlling the utilities? You can't.
But where I think his major issue was, from my perspective, crossing the line of threatening to kidnap.
Yeah, yeah,
Which becomes conspiracy to commit,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
is what.
Which is what they thought about.
That's where I say the underline of all of that sort of shows it being really crazy too.
Yeah.
Because if this guy is that learned, he would know that you wouldn't be threatening anything.
Yeah.
You'd just be going to challenge a man as you would challenge a man on the street.
Yeah.
You're going to say that you're going to go take someone's flesh and blood and hold him as if he's done something.
Yeah.
Says yet again on the to the underpinning of it that they're trying to imply that he's not stable. Again, which I wonder whether, as you can read through this, whether this is really what happened. Maybe he said he was just going to seize control of his national
resources.
He was going to take his stuff back.
Yeah.
And what they worded it at is that they were kidnapping this guy and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Because again, it's their
narrative.
their media outlet, so they're creating the narrative as to how it's going to be perceived
which
by the
again goes
public.
back to then what the prophet said about having your own newspapers and
So you can
publications
tell your own
and
story.
blah blah blah. So it's crazy stuff. It all comes back. It's really simple. But the hardest part is us coming together, working like a team.
Yeah.
Just on doing it.
Yeah.
And then we're allowing the criminals to really sort of muddy the water.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Europeans who absolutely know that they're on the outside of this. So if you notice now, and I've been noticing, every European now is telling me he's got some indigenous in him.
Yeah.
Just for next time, oh yeah, I'm part indigenous. Oh yeah, I'm cool for my Métis card. What's going on here?
Yeah.
You guys were never, no one wanted to be, no nothing up until about 2 years ago. Now everywhere I go, everyone's a
Everybody's
and funny enough, they all the same European called me nigger 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's funny you say that because
It's crazy.
I was
That
working
can be
with a guy,
nuts.
a European guy, and he's like,
Oh, indigenous, right?
anti-vax. Yeah, but I'm just like, oh, like, yo, indigenous rights say that, we have the right to our own medicines and traditions. So, I'm not getting that vax. Say, well, we're all indigenous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was on the one side on the walk too. The one side on the walk.
He does have a point though.
No, but I mean, from a certain perspective, he does. But where our issue is what we found is that isn't this kind of sly now, right? You've been keeping us out of. Well, you've been through our own ignorance. We've been keeping ourselves out of the true, de jure place that we're supposed to be. They've done nothing to help to do that. In fact, they've done the opposite to keep us thinking we're something else, and then they've been abusing us under that for the last little bit. We start to now figure out what's going on,
Now
start claiming our shit, and now they're all jumping the bandwagon
Right,
because they were all white before.
Yeah.
Now they're claiming that they're indigenous and that we're all indigenous,
Yeah.
right? And this is what, if you really realize, that's what that whole send your blood in to see what it was all about.
Yeah.
That was all
Part of
done
that.
as a precursor to tie themselves back into the land through the fact that, of course, we're all going to tie back to the Moors because we're Moors.
Yeah.
But now it's on them again to quantify where you come from. And every one of us comes from Ghana and
Yeah.
somewhere else.
And all of them are
and everyone
Micmac
of them
and-
comes
yeah.
from some guy over here. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Absolutely nuts.
And that's part even too with Joali saying not letting the foreign Muslims
Up in your rostrum.
speak at your rostrum. Because when you were Negro by color, they weren't trying to tell you nothing about Islam. Now that we know that we're Moors and we're Islamic and we got fezzes and turbans, now everybody's trying to tell us Ramadan and 5 times a day you gotta pray and this is how you do it and all that stuff. But they weren't saying anything when we were Negro. You know what I mean? When we were misclassified, it was
But what I
It's good for
realize
them.
again, the problem with it is that they've gotten the IC to Islam.
Yeah.
The IC to Islamic, not the Islam.
Yeah.
And this is what they've been, yet again, it's what they've done. In Christianity, they've given you sort of the rhetoric and the ceremony, but they don't let you into the actual secrets in the way that this is. They save that for the priests and the rest of the guys who then, to get into that circle, you have to then sell out. When really all this knowledge was supposed to be for us to uplift and to be, that's what the prophet said, that basically we're all supposed to be Jesuses.
Yeah.
We're all supposed to be Superman. That's really what's in us. We just allowed ourselves to, I was saying this to Kudu today, just the very nature I was navigating on my right to travel, and I was telling him that I find that what it is that we're our own worst enemies. We've put ourselves into a state where we kind of have allowed them to label us. And then we bring in those things that affect us because everything runs off of us. We run everything. We're just convinced that somehow they are in control of that. And that's why we're where we're at right now. Because for the most part, most of us are calling us outside of our own names. We're calling ourselves black, calling ourselves this. Of course we're not gonna have any power. I was coming to pick him up today, and I was like, okay, well, if I have to exercise my right to travel, whatever. And then I thought to myself, we should all be exercising our right to travel. Every time we walk in here, every time, you know what I mean, that's what the prophet said, we're all supposed to live together. You go to Chinatown, they're all doing what they want in Chinatown, because every one of those people in there is Chinese.
Yeah. And nobody's telling them anything in their jurisdiction.
And the only way you're getting into some position of power in the Chinese sort of enclave is by being Chinese, and more than likely having sold out to the dons, the head guys within those communities.
Yeah.
If you go down there, you see the One Luck Society,
Yeah.
all these societies. That's all the kind of the tribe leaders, right? And you don't get in there unless you're part of that.
You're part of it.
Right, and really that becomes almost like an I'm going to use probably a sort of a word. It's like embasonic. Chinatown is you walk in there as a Chinese, you're home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wherever that is.
You say a couple 1-2s, and you're upstairs in some doctor's
Wherever in the world.
Just a storefront.
Yeah. Wherever
you need a job, tomorrow you're working somewhere.
Yep.
You need a place to live, you got a room guaranteed.
Yeah,
right after that.
live in one house, and then you see them driving the foreign cars and everything like
Absolutely.
that. Build up.
And this COVID thing, what you're seeing here, I said this to Cujo last week, what this is really an economic battle that China blew us out of the water. Because we were selling ourselves out by pimping, by selling out the work that should have stayed here to keep us rich.
Mm-hmm.
They went to China to sort of undermine us who should have all gotten rich off of all the work that should have been done. We would have been those guys getting paid and blah, like everyone else did, and a share of that. They went to China, where the heads over there took most of it, paid their people the pittance, the $6 an hour rather than $26 an hour. So they made that $20 profit when they paid the Chinese guys 13. And so those Chinese guys then made their 7, while the rest of those Chinese people work like dogs, never spent a cent, and then have come over here. And same with the Hindustanis, you notice that? They're running the show now.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're downtown. Those guys are running, the Hindustanis now are running everything, bro.
Yeah.
Anything that you need to take a wheel or something, they're on it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
See, they've been even took over CCTV. That's all I see.
Absolutely.
Only them I see on TV right
Absolutely
now.
Absolutely. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, they've come in and able to, and what's happened is we basically, the higher ups within our society sold us out to make the profit and then basically drain the resources here and then have allowed the very people that they were paying to undermine us to then come in and take the show over.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's happening. And now the Chinese man is here running the show, running everything, while the European has taken the buyout and they're all running for the hills. You know what's happening? Getting out of here, declaring I'm German, I'm this, I'm that. They're gone now.
Yeah.
Now they're gone.
Yeah.
And now they've got us here. And this is what I said to Cujo before. They just muddied the water. Because now we're looking at our brothers and our cousins in our face.
Yeah.
Because it's a Chinese guy and it's a Hindustani guy now.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the European anymore. But meanwhile, the European really is still the mayor and still Trudeau. Right?
Yeah.
So then you notice they snuck one of their defense guys in there with the thing right there.
The turban,
the turban guy.
Jack
and
Meat, yeah, Jack Meat.
And then they gave him the NDP guy.
Yeah.
So you notice that even these guys who just came in here around the corner, they're all turbaned up in our office. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be watching what's going on here. And still
So
we're up here,
right in our face.
right in the grill.
Switch a route.
Yeah.
Change the colonists to Hindustani and
remember,
Asian
you gotta think about this. Remember, they're the kings of the class system.
yeah.
Indians are the kings of the class
They
system.
run
You
that.
and me would walk in there and look the same thing, and you'd be cleaning the floor, and I'd be getting a manicure.
Yeah.
Because my name is whatever, and your name is whatever. That's how kind of crazy it is over there.
Yeah.
The same thing I've heard with China too, that they have these things now where what I heard is that they got you got a coding.
Yeah, quota system, yeah.
Yeah.
Cash system.
There, so they know that you're only gonna make this much money,
Yeah.
so you're assigned to that position.
Yeah.
This is why everyone's running to America, that American dream.
Yeah.
Because the only way that they were able to get to where they were is to put themselves into a system. This is what I realized, because we were the land of freedom. We could come and do anything you wanted.
Yeah, and then they played them and they disguised the United States nightmare as the American dream.
Absolutely.
Everybody thinks they're getting something.
Absolutely.
Until they get here,
Right.
and then they realize, shit, this stuff is worse than where I come from.
Well,
I
absolutely.
might as well be home.
Yeah.
I might as well be home.
Right, because really, so I talked to another European guy. He was from the Yugoslavian era. He says, at least back there, you know who to pay off
Yeah,
to get the shit you want, because you're looking at one of your own. That's what it is all over the place. We're the only place here where we've got someone who doesn't look like us running us. If you see what I'm saying, like really running us. 90% of the so-called policy enforcers were European up until a few years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're quickly trying to throw people in there to keep you.
Yeah, I know,
Right?
right? They have all this, oh yeah, we need minorities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember, it's got to look like it's something else.
yeah,
Because this is what I've seen today. Kudo was hearing me on this anti-oppression thing today about, 30 years ago it was a different situation. 30 years ago it wasn't a different situation. They were still just as racist and effed up back then.
Yeah.
But you think anything's changed now? It's only, I was thinking about this. Oh, well, now we've got a reason to change. You had a reason 30 years ago when they beat Bernard King on that freeway.
yeah. Rodney King.
Rodney King, or whoever the hell it was. Bernard King.
Bernard King. That's New York. That's New York Knicks there, buddy. That's New York Knicks.
We'll get props to Bernard King. That dates me a bit, but anyway, but Rodney King, they beat the snot out of that guy. Remember that? They burnt that city down.
Yeah.
And then they still choke him. How about the big man that they choked out before this last guy they choked out?
Yeah.
Remember, I can't breathe guy. Remember that? Bro, we're a wounded people.
Yeah.
And the reason we can't get it together is because we keep leaving here and thinking we're black. So we put a spell on ourselves.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You're watching right now that they're passing this shit on to the Hindustanis and the Asians. But the Asians have been smart enough, if you notice, to really stay in the background.
Yeah.
They're really not interacting, if you notice that.
Yeah.
But they're taking the business over.
Oh yeah.
And they're smiling at you, and they're being pretty polite, and they are pretty, I'm not saying, but they look at us and look like a bunch of fools. This is what I think in the background. I think they can't trust us because we don't seem smart enough. That's how, because you notice these guys. We moved into an Asian building. It's quiet in there.
Yeah.
These people are up in there studying
Yeah.
all the effing time, bro. While we're all watching. I've got the ball game on, and it's just quiet next door.
Yeah.
And as I open the door, I see this little guy. He's just a student. You can tell he's just up in there, just studying. Just eyes are square and stuff. You know what I mean? Pencil marks. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We got to get on some stuff.
ASAP. ASAP. Oh, you're good, yo. Ranting is gotta get there. You gotta get it out, yo. Any other questions or comments before we do our Quran reading for today?
I noticed the Maroons in Jamaica, they're getting national ID cards.
Yeah. I think they're talking about 700 or something like that. From what I hear, 400 or something.
What, to buy it?
Yeah.
They said it was free.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cheap. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nationality what? What do you mean? Jamaican nationals?
No, they're saying they're First Nation, First People on
Here we go. Here we go now.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Don't worry, we got you. Indigenous card. Here you go.
Yeah.
You can go from there to there. Don't worry about it. Now we got your land.
Yeah.
Your resources.
Because once they're making the claim, in theory, they're making the claim. But I was telling somebody the other day, how come it's not Port Maroon over there? How come it's Port Moore? And how come it's not Moortown? How come it's not Maroon Town? Why is it Moortown? But then everybody's saying they're indigenous and they're maroon and they're Jamaican but then everything there is called Moor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bay. Everything's Bay. But you're maroons and all this. You know what I mean? So it's part of the whole thing where once the people don't know, then they're left for to be the spoils.
Just to jump ship, that's exactly what was said, codified, when he said it's all important, the commas and the periods and whatever. He was really telling you that it's all important about the language.
Yeah.
You're calling yourself maroon, you've got you sideways. You're
Yeah.
calling yourself indigenous, you come to us to get that allowance?
Yeah.
You've given it up?
Or you do it yourself. You say we're indigenous, so we're gonna issue indigenous ID, and then you got John Smith, the brother, and then you got indigenous ID. What were you gonna say, Omar?
No, I'm just saying, really what would happen is the Aboriginals would set up their card machines, produce their cards, let the co-leads there, which would be the Europeans, know that these are the cards that we're gonna have.
Mhm.
Now pieces off a building and whatever for the
Right.
taxes that you've been getting from us, and now let's sit down at the table and work some stuff out.
Mhm.
Is really how this should go.
If it was gonna work
If it
anyway.
was gonna work from that perspective,
Yeah.
if not, it's gonna be, okay, listen, we're gonna give you this area here. You're not gonna be able to work, but we'll give you this, and then all they're setting up is the same kind of reserve system. we have
Reserve
here.
system, yeah.
And Jamaica, those places are terrible to begin with, in terms of work, from what I've seen.
Mhm.
You get like a couple of days guaranteed work a year, from what I've understood.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Quran reading for today, chapter 9. Chapter 9. Jesus attends a feast in Bahar, and here he taught human equality. The fame of Jesus as a teacher spread through all the land, and people came from near and far to hear his words of truth. At Bahar, on the sacred river of the Brahms, he taught for many days. And Ak, a wealthy man of Bahar, made a feast in honor of his guests, and he invited everyone to come. And many came, among them thieves, extortioners, and courtesans. And Jesus sat with them and taught. But they who followed him were much aggrieved, because he sat with thieves and courtesans. And they upbraided him. They said, Rabboni, master of the wise, this day will be an evil day for you. The news will spread that you consort with courtesans, and men will shun you as they shun an asp. And Jesus answered them and said, a master never screens himself for the sake of reputation or fame. These are but worthless baubles of the day. They arise and sink like empty bottles on a stream. They are illusions and will pass away. They are the indices to what the thoughtless think. They are noise that people make, and shallow men judge merit by the noise. Huh?
Split half of it.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
But no, do you want to do the?
All right, yeah, cool. I'll stop at half, yeah. Merit by noise. Allah and all mastermen judge men by what they are and not what they seem to be, not by their reputation and their fame. These courtesans and thieves are children of my Father Allah. Their souls are just as precious as his sight as yours, or of the Brahmic priests. And they were working out the same life sums that you have solved, you men who look at them with scorn. And some of them have solved much harder than you have solved, and you men who look at them with scorn. Yes, they are sinners and confess their guilt while you are guilty, but they are shrewd enough to have a polished coat to cover up your guilt. You go ahead.
Suppose you men who scorn the courtesans, these drunkards and these thieves, who know that you are pure in heart and life, that you are better far than they, stand forth that men may know just who you are. The sin lies in the wish, in the desire, not in the act. You covet other people's wealth. You look at charming forms and deep within your heart and lust for them. Deceit you practice every day and wish for gold, for honor and for fame, just for your selfish selves. The man who covets is a thief, and she who lusts is a courtesan. You who are none of these, speak out. Nobody spoke. The accusers held their peace. And Jesus said, the proof this day is all against those who have accused. The pure in heart do not accuse. The vile in heart who want to cover up their guilt with holy smoke of piety, are ever loathing, drunkard, thief, and quotidians. This loathing and this scorn is mockery. For if the tinsel coat of reputation could be torn away, the loud professor would be found to revel in his lust, deceit, and many forms of secret sin. The man who spends his time in pulling other people's weeds can have no time to pull his own. And all the choicest flowers of life will soon be choked and die. Nothing will remain but darnel, thistles, and burrs. When Jesus spoke a parable, he said, behold, a farmer had a great fields of ripened grain. And when he looked, he saw that blades of many stalks of wheat were bent and broken down. And when he sent his reapers forth, he said, we will not save the stalks of wheat that have the broken blades. Go forth and cut and burn the stalks with broken blades. And after many days he went to measure up his grain, but not a kernel could be found. And then he called the harvesters and said to them, where is my grain? They answered him and said, we did according to your word. We gathered up and burnt the stalks with broken blades, and not a stalk was left to carry to the barn. And Jesus said, if Allah saves only those who have no broken blades, who have been perfected in his sight, who will be saved? And the accusers hung their head in shame, and Jesus went his way. Wow.
That's a great one. Yep. Any thoughts on that?
I just think it reflects that no matter where you're at, just keep heading for the light, and that any of the things that you have done in the past, to a certain degree, I think can be overlooked. And I think that's where the whole concept of forgiveness, and even on your deathbed having forgiveness, because once you have found the light, and all of that other stuff is just dross and really has no merit. It's really about your own personal journey, and getting to that place where you're not jealous of other people, where it's really about helping the brothership out, or the sistership.
Anybody else with some thoughts? One that stood out was verse 10. Allah and all mastermen judge men by what they are and not what they seem to be, not by their reputation and their fame. So when we say, because there's this idea that when you find out about this information, then the mountains of gold are going to be revealed, and then you're going to be able to go kidnap people and, get your stuff back from them and take this and take that because we're the Moors, and that's not where it's at. Because if you're looking at it from the perspective of these frivolous items of the flesh, you're obviously not on the higher road with this. They're no different than Yahshua sitting there with the thieves, right? And the murderers and everybody else. And they're breaking down some info. Just like Pimpin' Ken came out talking about, you gotta know your culture and know Noble Drew Ali and know Marcus Garvey and know who our ancient foremothers and forefathers are, because we're Moors, we're not Negro, black, colored, or whatever. He's a pimp, and he knows that. He's a pimp that won pimp awards and has the cup and all that stuff, and he knows about Noble Drew Ali or whatever. Then it's only right that everybody knows, right? That you don't get caught up in the reputation and the fame. We were talking about the big news with Kwame Brown coming out now, ripping everybody to shreds. Anybody who said anything to him in the past 20 years, ripped to shreds, right? Because not because I was on the court and I was on Jordan's team and I got 64 million means that I won't slap you people. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get cussed out because, I was in the NBA. Like, I don't got nothing to prove to any of you people. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at fame and nobility as, oh, well, because I was a whatever. That's not about where it's at. For you being yourself with us, even with him, came out and said that he's Geechee. That's Aboriginal indigenous people. That's not black guys. You know what I mean? That's culture that goes back generations. That goes back, right? Farming, you know, having your right to bear your arms and go shoot cans and whatever like that, so you can defend all this stuff that you got since you're Aboriginal and indigenous. You know what I mean? All that is part of the culture. That's not some stuff he just picked up yesterday. That's stuff that he got handed down from generations of other people before him. You know what I mean? And again, you have people like him who made it, and then they took everything that they got and they put it right back into the community. We always use Jackie Chan as an example. He doesn't spend any checks from his movies. Everything goes to charity. He has a little house that he has. He has a little cupboard with his 5 shirts and his 3 shoes and his 2 pants, and he's straight. He doesn't want nothing else other than that. Everything else goes to charity. You know, getting out of the fame and nobility mindset. Not that we weren't kings and goddesses and, you know what I mean, we didn't have this and that and couldn't do this and that. Yeah, we did, but we're caught up in that like that's the all and be all. That was just naturally what gravitated to us because of who we were in our mind, because who we were spiritually. That's just the energy that we carried, you know. And again, going back to the idea that the whole concept of the human equality, and that, you know, the judging the book by the cover. Because they're a murderer, that means that, well, not really. They might have had reason to shoot that guy in the face. It might not have been the way to do it, but, you know, if somebody touched my mom messed up, they might get that too, you know, which is why you have to get the whole story. You can't just go with what is said or what you heard or whatever like that. Always fact check 1, 2, 5, 7 times over. Fact check, just so that you're sure with, you know, where your mind is, where the individual is, and how to make this thing be reasonable, or how you can relate or understand it, understand it, overstand it, so that you're not taking everything just at face value, because there's always something deeper going on. There's always something more. That one little piece of information could change the whole way that you're looking at things, right? The pure in heart do not accuse. Verse 22. The pure in heart do not accuse. The vile in heart, who want to cover up their guilt with holy smoke of piety, are never loathing, drunkards, thieves, and courtesans. The loathing and this scorn is mockery. For if the tinsel coat of reputation could be torn away, the loud professor would be found to reveal in his lust deceit and many forms of secret sin. Right? Same thing that they say with all these preacher whoever's or whatever. That, yeah, they talk about the holy God, this, and Jesus saves, and Moses and all this, but then, you know, they got 50 different women going all over the place in their private jet and all that stuff, but they're closest to God, or whatever the case is, right?
I have a man who covets as a thief, and she who lusts as a courtesan. I thought that was part of the spiritual part to this, which is really, it's about the mindset, and where your mind is. And I found myself having to sort of train myself out. You'll see a vehicle go by, and I find that my eyes automatically are looking to see what type of vehicle it is. And I've been trying to train myself out of that, but I know that it harkens back to those days where, you know, the certain lines of a certain car, or that's a Mercedes, that's an Audi. And so you're sort of, you know, and yeah, so it's just seeing how much the indoctrination has really taken place in terms of objects. Things like that. that hits me too, because in lusting after something or wanting something, you automatically now are a thief. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a podcast one time, and the host was speaking about what his grandmother told him, and was, who you are is not who you portray yourself to be, it's who you are when no one's watching. What kind of things you're doing, and when you don't think anybody can see.
Right.
That's your true character.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments, questions?
Basically, said that there's many different versions of yourself. Because who you present yourself, who I am here, is not who I am to my mom, is not who I am to
You're right, straight. For real.
That guy who I cut off when I was driving. Oh, I hate this guy. You know what I mean? And then there's this old woman who I might have to cross the street and say, oh, he's like the most kind person ever. And there's thousands of versions of you. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I concur with what you're saying in essence, but what I've seen it as is that I think there's still the you inside there, that person that will help Granny across the street is the same person that's working hard at work. But where I see it is that you're wearing different hats. There's still the you inside of you that kind of is then being played out in the different roles that you play. And that's kind of how I sort of see it from my perspective. But like you're saying, those roles may have you not be Mr. Nice Guy at a certain level. Let's say within sports, you might be the guy.
but that's inside of you, right? Everybody doesn't see the you in the role that you get.
But people can pick up components of that role, for example.
And that will become the you to them.
Right, but it's also the you to you. Right? Because the same guy, this is at least just my thought, right? The same guy who's helping someone across the street, if we see you doing that, we're going to go, hey, that guy's a guy who likes to help people. Right? So for us, we interpret that your guy likes to help people. And within yourself, you're a person that helps people. So that's where I see the connection now. We might not see, let's say as an example, all I think for myself in basketball. I'm the kind of guy who, hey, it's time to cut their throat, it's time to cut their throat. Now that's not in alignment with the person helping Granny across the street. Now people say, well, that Omar is a guy who will kill you if within the sports thing, if he sees a weakness. That's where I see you're right. In that context, they'll be calling you a hitman. You get what I'm saying? So anyways, that's just how I see it. How you?
Islam.
No.
So we're if you're not on the email list, let me know and I could forward your number to Brother Tesba, the chairman, so you can get the emails. The next thing we have coming up is next week Sunday. We're doing this Ganaraska walk, so it's a conservation area. They got people in there with their horses riding and all this. The last time we went, it was about an hour?
It's an hour, pretty
About an
much
hour.
from like sort of getting on the highway to getting there and
Yeah,
settling in. It's 1 hour.
hour there, and then the walk, maybe about an hour.
Yeah, I
Little
mean, they have
over-
3 different walks.
little
There.
over an
I think one's 3 kilometers, one's 7, and one's like 11 or something. I wanted to do the bigger one, but I just think just getting out and sort of countering the COVID effect is part of where it is. Also getting out of the confines of the town for us who have been in these last walks in town. There's just less distraction out there.
Yeah, less attention.
Fresh air.
Yeah, way fresher air.
Yeah.
Way fresher air.
Yeah, and just, and then there's a kind of area that you can kind of, your cars are parked right there. There's like a couple open kind of fields where you can sort of, if you have one of those, I know from the basketball days, you have your lawn chairs, you can just come and sit down and set up. So that's what we're doing next week.
And people are free to do, whatever they're gonna do after we sort of schedule our things for like a 3-hour, 4-hour type of time slot. So which will include the meetup, getting out there, and then doing whatever the activity is. And then once that's done, then, you know, people are free to disperse or hang out, do whatever it is that they want to do. Like Omar was saying, all this stemmed from this thing of being in the house because of the whole COVID stuff last year. And we figured we might as well get the Moors together and just go outside on occasion just to get the hell out of the house.
Well, one of the other concepts was too, because within these confines of being inside, they've got this policy where they're affecting how many people should be here all the time.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why this is down, you know, interesting enough, like how they use the media thing. They had a little blurb on CP24. Oh, OPP officers.
Oh yeah, with the thing. Yeah, I thought about.
You see what I'm saying? We're always
I thought about that today.
They're-
I thought about that
OPP
today.
officers went to a location up north where they arrested 6 people
From Toronto.
from
Yeah,
Toronto
for breaking
who were
the
up there
COVID.
for breaking the COVID things. Now, we had our vernal equinox thing where we went to Airbnb where there was only supposed to be 5 people. We had 7. This was Kiva's little offspring. The lady, to begin with, we thought was going to be a problem, but then afterwards she's taking pictures with us, and we realized that she's got all this Moorish art. Remember you were there?
Oh, yeah,
all the
yeah.
Moorish stuff there. So it was one of those funny things, but they were giving us that. They were giving us that hint, letting you know that their policy is their policy.
Yeah.
And if these blinds were open, as an example, and they walked by here, we could be looking at certain issues, right? So we've just been, and until we can get ourselves to that state where we are autonomous, and this is part of where we have our own land,
Our own building.
our own building, our own stuff,
Yeah.
that we are, I thought that a way to live up to the policy, which is that you're supposed to have this space, but then they were limiting you to how many people you could have. By having a walk, you can't say that we're congregating any more than 5 people at a time. Because ultimately, once we start walking, that thing's spread out. So we can have 50 of us on a walk and still be together. So that's been part of why we've been trying to schedule this for now. As well as I was talking to Kuju today, hey, you know, SHIT, we should be outside every weekend. That is like this.
Yeah.
Have some outside spots. One of the things we want to do is start traveling around to the different regencies. Yeah, I think you're out west, right? Carl?
No, I'm east.
You're east now?
Yeah.
But you were west, right? Before? No, east. Oh, yeah, right. So east. So east. So we're looking to get out east
Right.
to wherever his regency is. Some people are in Brampton. Rennie's in Hamilton. We're looking to start, you know, pop up, bringing the show on the road. So that's just some of the stuff that we've been looking to do to sort of then give back to the community that's been supporting us.
Mhm.
All right, so you guys are in Brampton, we find a park there, we'll be in Brampton. You guys are in Hamlet, we'll be at the Twins Fall. We're in, you know, Oshawa, or wherever it is, Ajax, we'll be at a spot that you pick. So that's some of the stuff coming up, but we also realize that, you know, depending on the school thing, it used to be school, but you know, you got July and August, and then you're back on the so-called grind again. Because people have the offspring and all that kind of stuff, right? So the summer can kind of go like this, and the warm weather, as you can see, can be
That's
here
been,
today.
gone tomorrow.
I mean, I was chilling last week. I was like, okay, this is all right.
It's back, yeah.
This is May now.
Yeah.
What's it gonna be like in August?
And then they let you know that,
There's no.
we can just turn that dial.
Turn
down.
that dial.
Trudeau's like this. Don't worry, no, we got these guys. You know, they have the sub-zero things.
Yeah. We'll keep him in the house. We'll keep him in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, just letting you guys know too. I mean, this is some of the stuff we're planning to have a little bit of a town hall, but here we are again on what I would construe as their attempt to definitely start to lock us down in a much more physical way now, as well as bring everyone out there that isn't one of us to being a cop or a policy enforcer
Yeah.
now, right? You're not
Agent Smith.
Everyone now is an
Everybody's
agent now
agent.
for this thing. You're walking on the street and you're within 6 feet, you don't have a mask, you're making a phone call on some shit. Like, so real, you know what I mean? So real talk now. So what I am looking at us to is starting to yet again understand that the stuff that Cujo and these guys have been telling me about for years is here now. It's just not here. They're just not saying this is about the Moors.
Yeah.
That's all they're not saying that you're getting confused with. They're saying COVID-19, replace that with this is about locking the Moors down. And then you can start to realize what is really happening here. So we're looking at having a town hall to see maybe what things we want to tweak, what things we want to do. we've been trying to hit these guys in their tribunals and stuff, instead of trying to put them on blast, but.
They're not even letting you in the tribunal right now.
Right now, right? But a lot of it, but where the advantage of some of that stuff, a lot of that stuff is Zoom now.
Yeah.
So now you can be in your own home throwing, you don't know, but where's the bailiff? You hear this knock at the door.
Not even that. They just hang up on you at ex parte.
Yeah.
Hang up on you at ex parte the case.
But I mean, we all know that even the ex parte really doesn't help them.
Yeah.
Because then you have your day, you're always allowed your day.
Always allowed your day.
Right. So anyways, that's it, Morris. Love you guys. And,
Islam, Morris.
So we're there. And then June 20th, we're looking at the bluffs. Brimley. We may not be exactly there because we've got to check out what's going on there, but somewhere along the lakefront, we're going to be having our summer solstice, which is usually inclusive of a little bit of a some kind of ceremony or ritual or something like that. So just to honor in the summer and go from there.
Yeah.
Islam,
Morris. Let's close out. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night. And by day.
And by day.
His holy prophet. Noble Juali. Islam, Morris. Islam, chat, Morris.